times, if you want to be a successful artist, the engine has to be inside. And if you lose your rudder, it's really tough to. I mean, it's not even the rudder, but like you just get it back again and believe, because you know, the fraud complex. You guys will in any profession that you go into, you will likely feel like a fraud as you're doing it, because like for some reason you just don't know as much as you need to know, and it's always like they're going to figure me out. But I had films that I made in college. I went to SMU here locally. My father was a professor there, so it's a pretty easy financial choice to go there. But I was doing really well. I was making films that science fiction films, comedies, and they were playing on PBS. My sophomore year in college, I had a science fiction film play nationally on PBS. I had, I guess I am getting into this part of the story now, so why not? And I had that same science fiction film and a comedy film play all over the world in festivals. And then, yeah, I mean, I'll tell this story. I'm in it. And then 2001, I leave school, which was basically the year I would graduate had I been a little bit more attentive. But I leave school to make a film because I'm tired of talking about making films. And I get all the way through the production of it, and it's, you know, talking about that engine that's inside, that thing that allows you to keep going when society says no, don't do it, and more than society saying no, don't do it, it's always yourself, you know. And we finished production of that film early September of 2001, and somehow we got there without any budget. I don't know how we made it to that point, but we had, our sound guy had quit on the second day, so we had terrible sound, and then we had to use a technology that's, you know, that just didn't make the footage look good. It was original digital video, and you couldn't shoot it at 24 frames per second. And I say all this because right after finishing production, I took a nap, and then I woke up a week later, and it was September 11th happening. And while I know many people suffered actual losses from that, it was amazing to me when I kind of look back on my life, and then, you know, at that point, right after that, there was no one who was wanting to help some kid out with his, you know, art house film, and the engine had to be from me, and I didn't have it because there was no progress being made on that film, and all I had was the footage that didn't look good, and sound that didn't sound good. And I had gotten to this sort of, in my sort of spiritual development, in my finding the path to be on in this life, I went through major struggles with the idea of God and the idea of being worthy of being good at things, etc. And where I was in my life at that point, my only self-worth was coming from the films that I was making. I was only good if my last film was good. I got some advice around that time, or before I made that film, or started to make that film, where I had always done this thing that in college I had 4 or 5 films going on at the same time, always. It was just something that, you know, always trying to keep the balls in the air, and what that helped with at the time was sort of outrunning that I'm only as good as the last film being what defined me. But with that project, I had nothing else. And so somehow I went 8 years without making a film. And I was living in Austin. I'd been there for 5 years. And I came to the point where, hang on a minute, my mouth's getting dry here. You know, I like to describe it as I was the guy, you know, at the end of the bar or wherever we were, who, you know, could tell you, you know, I could have been somebody. You know, it was going in that direction, and I still had a belief somewhere in there that it was going to happen again. But like, there isn't a metric for that guy who's sitting there lamenting the past between the guy that. You know, let's say 20 months later, because one day my brother had moved down to Austin from Colorado with his 2 kids. They had a 3rd kid as soon as they were down there, and my brother could see that I was struggling. And at that time, you couldn't. It wasn't cheap to get a computer that could edit your footage. You had to. I mean, it was like a used car that you were buying. I mean, luckily it wasn't a new car by that point. But he co-signed on a loan, and I was able to start working on that, and I was able to get some work in the film world. But I found myself editing deer hunting videos. And I don't hunt, nor do I particularly like guns, so it was kind of it was not necessarily the best thing for me. And like, this is right here, my career of doing something like that was incredibly short. But it was lucky for me that it was so, you know, so not good that I could see it. It wasn't like golden handcuffs. Like, if you're going for your dream, you can get stuck being really close to it for a long time. And fortunately, this was deer hunting, and that's when I said, well, I gotta make a film or stop calling myself a filmmaker. I call up a producer buddy of mine and I say, I want to meet. Let's, you know, no pressure. I'm just gonna lay out all these ideas that I have, and whichever one you most attached to, that's what I'm gonna start on next Monday. And so we go through all these different ideas, and we settle on this science fiction film, which is pretty much what I thought we were going to get to. Then I ask him what he's up to, and he lists off a number of things. And finally, he gets to a point where he says, you know, he's helping out some people on a couple of football documentaries. And I say to him, you know, I've got this football story I've always wanted to tell. And here's the thing. Growing up, I always wanted to tell the story of the SMU football death penalty. And when I mean always, well, since I was 8. It happened when I was 8 years old. But I don't remember a time when my answer, I would have different answers at times as a young child, but always I would cycle back to, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say, I want to write, produce, and star in my own films. And I gave up on the starring, and now I only produce because I have to. But like, being a filmmaker was so ingrained in me. It was also like what kept me going, you know, dealing with the melange of mental health issues that I did. I had clinical depression, you know, I had anxiety. Things like of this nature that drive someone to want to be an artist. You know, like if your life is easy to connect with, there isn't as much draw to say I need to correct something or I need to do something to shift and show the world how I feel. But in this sort of like this stress of childhood. With those issues, the filmmaking, which was well in the future, is something that like I could cling to. Like, no matter how bad my life was, I had this knowledge that I was going to be doing something when I was an adult, and that I just had to get there. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, my dad was a professor at SMU, and when SMU got the death penalty, I was 8, and they took something away from me for 2 years. When you're 8, everything's uniquely yours. It doesn't matter that everybody else is suffering too, but they took my team away from me, and they told me that we were cheaters. And also when you're 8, you know, a year is like a decade, and so no SMU football for 2 years. You know, I'm the much younger brother of an older brother and older sister, and they're 9 and 10 years older than I am. And when I was born, my older brother loved Star Wars and SMU football, so I loved Star Wars and SMU football. And somehow they combined, because Star Wars, in the sense of I found myself wanting to be able to take people to those places where those films spoke to me in a way that told me that I was going to be okay. And so I wanted to make films that at times give the audience a hug and tell them it's going to be okay. And I can circle back to that as well. But the thing I was about to say is that, like, I'd always wanted to tell the SMU story as a scripted film. That was always the plan, and so it was always a traditional movie with actors. So it was always something that was going to be way later on in my career, when I could sort of demand the kind of funding that it would take to do recreations of an era, have the kind of respect and credibility that I'd be, allowed to do it in a manner that I was actually using the real names and the real university, whether it's the markings and the uniforms. So it was a back burner thing. But literally, like, in that moment when I said, I've got this football story I've always wanted to tell, just as soon as those words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, well, I gotta talk to all these guys anyway. Why not bring a camera? My career path was not, in my mind, intended to go towards documentary. And I love doing documentaries. And I thought early in the career that I would do a couple here or there, but it wasn't even part of my metric. And so I get back to the little office that I'm renting, and by the way, it wasn't just a deer hunting video that I was editing that week. I was editing a 2-day long, maybe it was only a day, but whatever, a day-long seminar on deer feed. What you feed your deer if you own a giant ranch. I called the guy who hired me to do that, and I was like, look, I know you got another project for me next week, but I'm going to deliver this on Friday, and then you're going to have to find somebody else, because I got a full-time job starting on Monday. And I started full-time on what became Pony Excess that following Monday with, very, very little idea of a plan. It was more that I knew that no one was going to give me any money to do this film. Again, water. Nobody was going to give me any money to do this film, in my mind, if I wasn't giving 100% of my primary commodity. And that was my time. And so I threw myself into it. I got eviction notices. I got my power turned off. I got my cable turned off. But 18 months to the day after I started, it aired on ESPN and became the most watched documentary premiere in ESPN's history. So when I say that, like, there isn't a metric, there isn't, because and it's really amazing. One thing that, like, I would love everybody to know and to recognize in their own life is, if you think the world is out to get you, then the world is out to get you. It's going to keep eating you up, eating you up. If you think if you just think, hey, the universe conspires in my favor, it does. It does. And so the crazy thing is, my faith journey, emotional journey, it's all really intertwined. But, like, I can look back on that Pony Excess experience, and it's whatever it is that I believe. there is no way that there wasn't something more going on there that propelled me into that position. You know, there were just signposts along the way that were yelling, yes, yes, Thaddeus, this is what you're supposed to do. Even though I had had success much earlier on, again, you're thinking, do I really know what I'm doing? And believe it or not, by the way, the biggest joy in my life came years after that, because when we premiered Pony Excess, we showed it to, you know, in an 800-seat theater, probably 1,000 people, standing room only. It was just an amazing experience at a theater that's now a bowling alley, the Lakewood Theater, and the sort of whirlwind of it being on ESPN, etc. All of that was amazing, but something crazy happened, or at least it was crazy to me. I still wasn't happy. I had thought my whole life I could get to the top of the mountain and happiness would come with it. And when it didn't, that's when my journey really, really began in earnest, in terms of like, I have to find a way to define who I am outside of other people's opinions or my opinion or any of these things. You know, I'm sort of bouncing between many things. I hope I'm creating an enjoyable narrative so far. The Jesuit connection for Pony Excess is pretty amazing, this is why, like, after the film came out, you know, I told my folks, however much money you spent for Jesuit, it was worth every penny, because that wouldn't have happened without Jesuit. And something else working, because I decided that I was going to do this film, and around the same time, you know, I finally decided to get on Facebook, and at that point connected with a lot of old high school classmates, and one of my classmates was like, hey, you know our buddy Michael Hughes, he's out in LA, he's starting a film production company, you should really talk to him. All I knew about Mike Hughes was that he had worked at ESPN, he had been an intern there and moved his way up, and then he had worked for Fox NFL. I had a conversation with him that, like, a couple months before I had decided on this path. Once I decided on this path, I call him up and I say, I want to do a sports documentary. Here's my idea. And I laid it out, and I must have talked for 45 minutes, an hour. At the end of it, I told him the whole thing, how I want to execute the film, how I see it, all of this kind of stuff. And I get to my big finish, and then there's silence on the other end of the line. And I'm like, that bad? and he's like, no, I wish I would have thought of it. And then he says to me, anything I can do to help, anything at all. And I'm like, great, for right now, all I need is just you to put your name on it as an associate producer, whatever, so I can have something in this packet that I'll be handing out that has a little bit of credibility. In my mind, yes, we had voted this guy most likely to succeed in our class, so yes, he should be doing well, but I had no idea whether he was just making coffee at these places or, you know, what he was doing. When it came to putting that packet together, I asked him, can I have a bio of, you know, what you've done, etc. And if you don't have a bio, I'll write one for you. Just send me your CV. And he doesn't find a bio, so he sends me over some information, and it turns out he's won like 20 Emmys at that point. And I was like, I don't know that I bought 10 pairs of shoes since college. How is this possible? And I get on the phone, and I was like, did I say associate producer? I meant executive producer. And the world works, the universe works in really crazy ways, because he had won another Emmy that year, another sports Emmy, and the Jesuit alumni publication came out, and it talked about how there were two Jesuit alums that had won sports Emmys that year. And the other guy, he didn't know, and sports TV is a small enough world that he felt like, and Jesuit obviously, that he felt like he should know this guy. So that's part of the story, because the very next week after I asked him to be in the film, he's at a party in Los Angeles, and he meets this guy who happens to be business partners with this other Jesuit alum Emmy Award winner that year. And he's like, I got to meet him, and the guy says, well, he's at this party. And so they go, or he goes, and they're just talking about anything, and he asks the two guys, the business partners, well, how did you guys meet? And they say, we met in school at SMU. And he's like, I just started a project about SMU. So then he relays all this information, and they get excited, and they're like, anything we can do, we want to help. Then, the next week, this is all 3 weeks that I don't find out until maybe a year and a half later, or maybe not a year and a half later, maybe 6, 8 months later. The very next week, those two individuals are in New York, and they're having dinner with an executive friend of theirs that is lamenting the fact that she just lost one of her 30 documentaries in this new series upcoming called 30 for 30. And these two gentlemen were like, well, have we got the documentary for you? And again, like, I was back in Dallas, struggling away, and cobbling. I was in Austin, excuse me, cobbling together funds to get this going, and doing a little struggling, and that was happening, and I mean, it's I ended up being the only unknown director of the 30 of that first 30. So it was, incredible kind of journey. And I'm going to stop for a second and let you ask a question or direct me in some manner. I'm good to keep going. I just need more water. No, I'm good. I got it. I'm just going to fill you up to get that. All right, thank you. I guess I'll talk about the other Jesuit connection of what you guys saw up there. Well, first of all, I'll say that like Pony Excess there, we watched up until right through the title, and we came in on the Kennedy assassination, and I had been convinced that the film started at the Kennedy assassination because being from Dallas, my family didn't move here in my lifetime. I was born here, and like it was pretty obvious that we were only known for 3 things, and that's a TV show called Dallas, a football team, and that we're the place where a president was killed. And that's not necessarily totally true, but that's the perception, right? And so I feel that like Dallas continues to work to reinvent itself and to show its better side, because it keeps wanting to shed the image of being the city of the assassination. But then again, I mean, we have an X on the road where it happened, so it's not like it's not like we're moving on. But that, so it's interesting. The last time I saw any of the beginning of that film was a couple months ago in New Zealand. I was there with the Into the Spotlight film. It was showing in a couple of cities in New Zealand, and I was speaking to a group like this, and we ended up watching like maybe 2 or 3 times as long as we watched there. I think you stopped it at a good point, and especially when I was showing New Zealanders, I totally lost them once the football started. So what was I going to say about the other Jesuit connection? Which was the other Jesuit? I mean, there's so many. Like, so the final project that you saw is this documentary about Fidel Castro's daughter, and and it's just sort of crazy. I mean, it is absolutely crazy that that I am in this position. And again, last night I had the very weird moment of telling somebody, I'm sorry, I have to take this call. It's Fidel Castro's daughter. But I will say that, like, my interest in Cuba and my interest in the Castro family started here at Jesuit because I discovered that Fidel and his brother had gone to a Jesuit school in Cuba. And I wondered how, you know, how they had gotten to a point where they would ban religion as a part of their government that they set up, coming from a place such as this. And I've met now plenty of people who've gone to that Jesuit school, Berlin Jesuit. It ended up moving to Miami soon after, you know, Castro was in power. And all the people that I know from there are really, you know, intellectual people and look at things in a balanced way. So I really feel like the Jesuit education is universal. So it gave me, or somewhat, because you can find in people who have gone to Jesuit high schools a sort of kinship and a way you look at the world. And so this idea that they could have gone to a Jesuit school and gotten to this point later always fascinated me. It never fascinated me enough that I was ever thinking that I would be involved in doing something about, you know, any member of the Castro family. But it did stay with me. And later in life, I in addition to doing that documentary, I was an executive producer on a scripted film on the same subject, and you know, it's a fascinating thing because you know, I helped the producers get the scripted film made. I helped them raise the final $4 million, and then the decision was made that, like, that film needed to be told from a Latin voice. And so, you know, I stepped back into being executive producer, and then we had this documentary. That investor that I helped convince to put that $4 million in, he wanted me to do something, and so he asked if I'd be willing to do a documentary. And, you know, I had the same thought again. It's like, I'm not Latin. I'm also not a woman, so this is a Latin story, a woman's story. What right do I have to tell it? But I found that, like, in this instance, it was, you know, a storyteller has the right to tell any story because the stories choose you. You know, they find you, and this idea of, I'm huge on representation, but also what I've discovered with doing the film is that, like, I am a total outsider to their community. I didn't, you know, I studied Spanish in junior high, but not here. I studied French here. So, like, I don't speak Spanish. And by the way, if you go to Miami, you know, you can't survive in Little Havana if you don't know Spanish. It's like Central America there. But, you know, with that, I was able to, with that film, it's been really amazing, just sort of like getting to know this community. And I gotta, so Fidel Castro's daughter, so you know this, she was a dissident in Cuba. She spoke out against her father's regime. She was jailed by her father. She eventually escaped Cuba and has been an outspoken critic of the government ever since. And she literally said these words to me last night. She said, you know, when I look at my life, the only two good things that I've done, or important things that I've done, were continuing to speak out against that government and getting my daughter out of Cuba. You know, it's kind of amazing because I think about the strength that it must take for her to to not live in anonymity. She could have gone elsewhere, and yet there she is in Miami with the primary chunk of the Cuban American film and into the spotlight. You're dealing with first of all, with the homeless population. This was a continuing reckoning. I did a series for the NFL where we did a social justice series, and yes, I did say the NFL had us do a social justice series, but there's a reason why you haven't seen it, because it was for the NFL, and they didn't need the good publicity that they thought they did. But in that time, I started to open my eyes to things that I hadn't noticed before, as sort of open-minded and just people forward as I felt that I was. I kept finding blind spots. We did this piece in New Orleans on these guys who'd gotten out of prison and worked for years to get voting rights for the post prison life there in Louisiana. They couldn't vote, and so the whole thing was, prisons in the U.S. and most places, they're punitive. But the verbiage used is that you go and you serve your time so you can then become an active member of the community. And they were coming back and not being active, allowed to be active and be a citizen. And eventually some New Orleans Saints players got involved, and they were able to change the law, and that's hence the reason why we're talking to them in this episode. But I did so much work to get this little story element together, but it wasn't until we were filming that scene and the individuals were talking that I finally saw them as real people. I realized that I had been thinking about these guys as ex-cons the entire time that I was doing this. Not like, but like, when they started to speak, I was like, wait a second, I haven't, as much as I've been excited to tell this story, and I haven't acknowledged their humanity until this moment. And it's something that I continue to look for, because when being asked to do this homelessness documentary, it's really easy to sort of think about it's really easy to drive past homeless people, right? It's really easy to lump them in a group and just not think about them. And I've been guilty of it, more often than not. And when I got this opportunity to sort of spend some real time with a few individuals, especially one that was living under a bridge, and interestingly, well, I mean, you guys know this, but there was a group of Jesuit seniors who was volunteering with those individuals, and one of those Jesuit seniors interned for me, and his dad's over there, and I'm assuming his mom, and that was a few years back. But I think the way that Jesuit sort of helped me define a path that I was already on in terms of ethics and morality, but in a way that made me feel like my ethics and morality and the way I approached it were okay. The Catholic faith as a whole, and growing up Catholic, I was very much given this sort of rigid, line in the sand thing. And the Jesuits, I've always said that I don't think you actually have to believe in God to be a Jesuit priest. You just have to want to, and want to take the journey. I know you have to say your vows, but like this idea of like continuing to question and continuing to search and not being satisfied with the answer that somebody else tells you, you know, and finding it for yourself. And so I use that kind of approach to storytelling as a whole, but in say this instance, the simply acknowledging another's humanity is something that's obviously very much part of the education here, and this idea of understanding that this person isn't this you know, defined as such. He or she is much more. But like, to do that documentary, it was trying to help a certain subset of the homeless population. It was trying to help people who had been to prison and had child support, back child support they needed to pay. So I was being asked to help out, to do a documentary about a group of people who had three things that are normally ignored. First of all, if you got back child support, you know, you're a deadbeat parent, and like, you know, so that's already a strike against these individuals. Then they had all been to prison, so that's a strike against them. And then they're homeless, and so it's a group I don't do enough thinking about. And how do you get to the point where you can define their challenges for a broad audience in a way that can slough off or get through those negatives. I mean, you find that they only had back child support because they were in prison, and the child support was going on while they were in prison, while they had no job to pay this, and then they come out and they have this mountain of debt that they can never pay off, and they're basically sentenced to the streets then, because they can't afford to live. But like, I wouldn't know that if I didn't answer a call or accept the challenge. And you know, I think that like the whole, I mean, men for others, etc. Ethos, it is something that like is a call to again allow individual stories to soar as their own individual story, rather than, you know, something that we can continue to ignore. And you're talking about like potentially being exploitive, and you know, the challenge is with a documentary, you're not necessarily showing reality, you're showing representative reality. And at times you have to be intrusive with your camera, and it's like always we have to skirt the line as we're gathering the footage of something that would be too intrusive, etc. But it's like what we do, it's then what we do with it, and obviously the trust that we've developed before we get into those filming situations, that sort of like allows it to, you know, there's a scene in Into the Spotlight where we see this girl that's in a wheelchair doing everything she can to be walking at home, and it's so difficult for her to use this walker and walk through her house. She can still do it, and she still tries to walk. And the way we filmed it was really, you know, like highlighting just how challenging this was. And I just knew that, like, yes, we're a little bit more obtrusive than feels maybe comfortable, but like, if we don't show the struggle here, the triumph that we also show isn't as great. And so I think it really is that sort of like trusting the whole, or discovering the whole human, and maintaining that that focus on humanity, that you can sort of get as close as you need to get, and then there's trust that you are going to take that footage, that piece of their lives, and represent it in a compassionate and responsible way.
You mentioned before about how in your career and your journey, you struggled to separate yourself from your art. I was wondering if you could expand on that and where you stand on that now and how you got there, how you managed to separate your identity from and your work from the art that you create.
Thank you. It gets back to that whole journey I was discussing a little bit ago with the making pony success, and then joy not coming with it, happiness not coming with it. I grew up wanting to be three things: a husband, a father, and the world's greatest filmmaker. And my joke was, early in my career, was like, and it's amazing to me that I'm closest to the one that's impossible. I say all that because, like, that was something that in junior high, when I was struggling so badly to, I had suicidal ideation, suicidal fantasies. I didn't feel like I had many friends. It was like I was always struggling to breathe, always struggling to be okay. And I had this, this knowledge, though, that that I was going to get somewhere someday, and whether or not it made any of them feel bad for how they treated me, it didn't really matter, because it was like, I have to see this through, because there's a place to get to, and I really put a lot of stock into this idea that, like, I'm going to get there and then I'm going to be okay, the challenge is that you go back to this fraud complex kind of thing, and it was I don't want to say it was more prevalent in myself, but like what had happened is I got to college, and we didn't have high school film programs. We didn't have, I didn't have a camera to be making movies at home, right? None of this. I get there and immediately start making films, and they're immediately better than most, and they're getting recognized. And I don't know what I did to have that happen, right? I wasn't used to things being good without me knowing the effort that must have gone into it, and so I didn't feel I deserved it. I mean, I can look back now and say that, and see that my entire childhood to that point was deconstructing films and thinking about how I was going to make this and how this film and that film works. But when you're in it, it was very, very, I mean, it was kind of lonely, because it's like, can I trust telling anybody that I have no idea what I'm doing? Like, are they going to still respect me in this process? And the funny thing is that, like, I've really discovered that I still don't know what I'm doing, and I discovered that because I had a young guy working for me for the last 2 or 3 years, up until about a year ago, 6 months ago. And like, this guy was so inquisitive, he was almost too inquisitive. He kept asking me why I was doing things when we'd be on set. So why are you doing that? Why are you asking that question? Why are we setting up, like, he wanted to learn, and I was like, I don't know. Ask me in a year, and then I'll be able to tell you what I'm doing. It's just, you talk about flow state, you talk about, being in the zone and looking at some of these sports docs, but like, I have discovered that I no longer see myself as my work, and I had to hit a rock bottom emotionally, where I didn't want to exist anymore. And I don't recommend that path for everybody, but getting to the point where I was basically at death's door and got an opportunity for an extra life, as I like to call it. It's like if I feel like I was Mario falling into the hole, but I grabbed one more coin as I fell in and got the one up. I mean, I feel like my life since this point that there was this big break for me, it has been an extra life. And I can go into that a little further. I don't have any problem sharing what that was or what that looked like. But it also had to do with, you know, with faith and belief. And I just remember I was so angry at a God that I didn't believe existed. That, I mean, I had no place to put that rage, that despair, that sadness. And I had to find a different way, and I had to sort of like just trust that there was something bigger than me, and just act in faith that if I go in the direction it's pointing, my foot will land on solid ground. And it took many years of doing that, but the gift of, I mean, I look at my art as a gift, and then I look at the pain that I went through, and it's not like, I don't think my pain is unique, but I know that I went to hell, and I came back from it, and the idea is such that I say it's a gift because I understand what joy is, and I understand how amazing it is to be able to live in joy. And I've been able to sort of combine those two gifts, one being the storytelling with the other being this journey, and it's what I work towards in my life and in my film work is hoping that I can be, or the films can be, a light so that others may see and get to the same place on the path of joy as I am, and or, you know, as their own path of joy. But what's happened is, in this, I had to start looking at it as a gift, and it's like, it's not me that's good. I mean, I'm not good, bad, right, or wrong because I have this gift. It's just a gift. And the best way to say, the best thing I need to do is say thank you. The best way to say thank you is to use it. And so this whole idea of it not being me is so freeing. I mean, like, I can enjoy the process, and like, I mean, I feel like I'm on a ride because again, like I said, sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just following the universe. And and I say that one of my favorite quotes is from Michelangelo, and he said, "I saw the angel in the marble, and I carved until I set him free." And I think that filmmaking is the ultimate team sport art. You come together, and I like to look at the films that I quote unquote make. I don't make them; they're already there. It just means, like, in the parlance of talking about making films, the films that have my name on it as director, like, I see them all as already existing. They're already out there in the ether, and we're just clearing away the beauty that's already there so that the world can see. And again, I don't recommend the path that I had to go on to sort of you know, just have that ultimate desperation. But the real thing is to understand that, like, this is a gift incoming, and, you know, ride the wave with it, and also, you know, don't let it define you, you know, because then you're allowing external opinions to hold you captive and keep you back.
So, is there any sort of filmmaker or person that has inspired you, or you kind of strive to be like, pushing your career as a filmmaker?
You mean just artistically?
Or personally as well?
Excuse me, sorry. So, I mean, I'm inspired by Stanley Kubrick. I love how he has one of the great films in pretty much every genre, and that's something that I would like to do as a filmmaker. You know, I'm still planning on getting back to scripted film, and the sort of relentless commitment to excellence that he has or had. I see the same thing in Christopher Nolan, not to the absolute extent, but as someone working in different genres and making great things in each. But I mean, you asked me like who inspires me, it's so difficult in the sense of like. I was asked a similar question, like if I could meet, befriend, be mentored by any of the above by one person, who would it be? And I felt like I was selling the answer short, but it was just like the only human being who has done something that that totally transformed my life. It was something that happened before I was born. It's George Lucas and his original Star Wars trilogy, which taught me everything I needed to know about storytelling. I learned from that, and it gave me a hope. I mean, like talking about wanting to give the audience a hug. I remember so many times being sick, home from school. I wasn't actually sick, I was just anxious, depressed, and I could turn on this Star Wars trilogy and it could take me to a place where there was good, and there were people who came together that were friends, and they accomplished the near impossible. And they did it through faith and belief in each other and belief in something greater. And that is something that like I didn't get from religion as a kid. I didn't connect with religion in a real way because I kept going towards this this absolute of like you're going to hell. And I was really afraid that I was going to hell because, like, no matter how good I was, how many rules I followed, I was never happy, and I never had friends. I felt early on. I mean, once I went in this different direction in terms of like trying to find something for myself, I tried to be everybody's friend here at Jesuit. I was like, what do I need to do to turn this around? And it's like, I'm going to treat every single classmate here exactly the way I wish people would treat me. And that is like, ask me how I'm doing and then care about the answer, or do something to lift up the spirits. And it's really funny thinking about, I have a classmate here, at the end of high school, we did the senior superlatives, and I was like, hey, I got a chance at maybe most artistic, maybe most humorous. Wouldn't that be awesome if I got that? And I got most friendly, and I was really disappointed. And that's not something to be disappointed about. If you are amongst your classmates voted together as one thing, that is a gift, and it's like the big thing is in all things expectations. Expectations are the biggest killer, and if you just divorce yourself from the result and you take the action, it's amazing where you get to. And I can look back on high school, and yeah, I mean, people didn't know me as the artist or as the humorist. That was a part of me, but like, what did I commit to every single day? I committed to showing up and just being the person that I wanted others to be for me. And so it really is amazing that my classmates recognized that in me. And so something that I thought was that I didn't appreciate immediately is quite impactful now. Because you are what you do. You aren't what you think. It's what you do every day. That's what you are. I feel like I've lost where you started this question. You started this question. See, I totally lost it. What was it again? Yeah. Well, I mean, George Lucas, Stanley Kubrick. I really connected with Kurt Cobain and Nirvana when I was here in high school. Mainly because I didn't like any band that was popular for the most of my life, early life. And I mean, you guys weren't here, but like Nirvana happening was the largest thing on the planet. It was seismic, and everybody loved them. So I didn't love them because like all the cool kids and everybody loved them. And then he committed suicide, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, here's a guy who was in the most popular band on the planet, clearly grew up wanting to do this. He is at the pinnacle, and he is taking his own life. I'm like, my darkness, I struggled, all this kind of stuff, and it was at that point that I got into the music, and I all of a sudden realized that it was for me, and for the most part, like what great art is, you see that it's for you always in it. But like, I found someone who was struggling like I was, and he was struggling at this highest stage, and he was also able to express it in his film. I mean, in his music, in a way that like. Made it okay just by getting it out there in this sort of open kind of thing. And the funny thing is that like, as soon as I committed to this, he has a song that talks about how there are people who like his music and they don't know what it means, and it's like he was already getting that like they were getting more popular than he knew how to deal with, and like he didn't like that some of these people who didn't necessarily get him could be so into his music. And so I think that like, though he, I'm sure that a lot of people have not taken their own lives because of the compassion that they got from Kurt's music, and it's something where you just wish that he could have found that himself, and I think it also has to do with that idea that we were talking about before, and that sort of like understanding that there's the gift is different from you, and that you are not good, bad, right, or wrong based on anything really, because and you don't have to judge yourself. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is that that we're not the judge, and all we need to do is just sort of think and look at our lives, and if we have an opinion on something, we can act on that opinion, but we don't have to be right. We don't have to, that action doesn't have to succeed or go in a certain way for us to be okay. And so the more in life you continue to just take the action and take the action and take the action, the farther you're going to get. And I know this question didn't get to this, but like, the piece of advice I always love to give is, if you're struggling to figure out what it is you need to be doing, it's always the thing that looks like the hardest work. If anytime you are trying to take the easier, softer way, that's the path of pain. And I can't tell you how continuing to choose the challenge, the struggle, is what takes you.
And be inspired by other artists, or is it collaborating with others? Stuff like that.
That's a great question, and you may have. Are you still going to ask me about there was another question on there about like when did I know that I made it or something like that? Okay, cool. This one and that one were ones that got me thinking, and the thing what is the most important part of my filmmaking career? It's the most important part of my life, and that's right now. We spend, as humans, so much time regretting the past and creating, fictional futures that we miss out on what's happening right here. And the joy is right here. This is the only thing that's real. Like, whatever you're thinking about from the past and in the future, those aren't happening right now. Just this is. So engaging in the present, and like, I consistently have to remind myself that, like, even though I have all of these stories I want to tell that are traditional movies, and I want that time to be now, I have to continually say, but this is what I have in my present right now, and it's like the challenges and the frustrations that I have with filmmaking, with my career, with whatever, all of these things are things I dreamed of having when I was your age, and it's just so important to hold on to the idea that, like, no matter how bad it is, if you follow the artist path that you think you see or you want to be on, no matter how bad it is, it's all what you dreamed of doing. And so the answer is right now, and it's collaboration as well. Like I was saying with the film already being out there, I know that, like, I don't necessarily see the whole answer or anywhere near the whole answer. I just have a way to start, maybe. But then there are other people who can see parts of the beauty that's there already. And it's about understanding that it's okay for other artists on your projects to be able to bring their great ideas to bear. As a director, your job isn't to have the right answer; it's to recognize the best answer. And this idea that we have to have the right answer will cause us to not take good ideas, because we have to have the idea. And also it goes back to then that fraud complex thing, where if someone else has a good idea, well, now I can't take it because, there's no way this person should have a better idea. But ideas are just ideas. They float in the ether. We are not our thoughts. You cannot control what the next thought is that comes into your head. Things just arrive, and just imagine when you're in a filmmaking process that the thought can just arrive for other people, or at times for multiple people at the same time. And that's the really cool thing, because, like, there are some big things that happen in the films that have my name on as director, where multiple people can feel like they had that idea or that thought because it was arrived at.
I think at this moment we are going to open the floor up for a Q&A. So if anyone wants to have a question to ask, feel free to talk.
What is the hardest part of, like, making the film?
The hardest part is the blank page. It's the beginning, and the beginning can last for so long. Interestingly, though my dreams growing up were in, again, the scripted realm, etc. The great thing about documentaries, or at least what I've discovered, is I don't have to have the answers at the outset. I can just, just get choppered into whatever story it is, not literally, though once it was literally, and just go and just soak it in, and then, when you come back from being in the field or doing interviews, you have things that you can just throw on the timeline, and like it's like you didn't have to start. The challenge though with that is that often to get money and to get network partners, etc., you have to show them something. So I enjoy making creative decks for the most part because I can learn about the subject, but like the time that I'm starting the creative deck is always one of the most challenging, and it's because like I don't want to I have this thing where I don't want to force my own ideas on the subject. I want the subject to be able to express itself. I mean, Pony Excess, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but one thing that like I felt like if an outsider had told that story, it would have been like, oh, look at how bad they are, right? They're just terrible. Look at these cheaters. And then I thought that, like, if another kind of insider would have made it, it would be, oh, poor us. And I was like, the exciting thing is to just let it happen. Just show it as it is and allow the audience to have their own opinions. So this idea of whatever this or that might be, and wanting it to shine itself, it makes it really hard then if I'm asked to put together something that really spells out what we're doing and how we're doing, and my advice to myself and to you guys, make it up, just go forward. And I mean that in a few ways, because one, once you just get something down, then you can refine it, and then you can refine it a little bit more. And it's like it's like mopping incorrectly. Like you have this bucket, and if you're mopping correctly, you're using just the right amount of water and just the right amount of space. But instead, you just dump the bucket out.
Years after college.
My finance situation? How's my finance situation now? This is my one of my favorite stories, and I've gotten to tell it at other high schools and at universities. The first film, the first 30 for 30 that I made, Pony Excess, it won a major award. It won a Peabody Award, which is a journalism award. And growing up wanting to be a filmmaker, you don't dream of winning a journalism award. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's an honor, right? And so when I'll step back and say that, like, I had gotten great advice while I was making Pony Excess that the phones aren't going to start ringing. You got to go back and you got to keep working hard, all this kind of stuff. But the day, let's go here. The day that Peabody arrives in the mail, and it arrived in the mail, I didn't sign for it. It's just sitting in a box on my door in front of my apartment, and I have no idea what it is. I'm like, oh, I didn't order anything from Amazon, and it's just so cool. And it's just, I mean, it's external validation, and yes, I've been talking about how much you have to sort of like set that aside, but it is really great when you get external validation, because it just feels like such a relief. So I called everybody I knew that would be excited about me physically having this Peabody, and that included my parents. And just, they were over the moon, and I was over the moon with them, and then I was like, and can I borrow money for rent? and I really needed to borrow money for rent. There was no joke in that. I'd sort of come out and thought that the hard work that I had to do was just sort of like on the bigger projects, right? You know, to get the bigger projects to go. I didn't think about, like, when I get through with this, I'm gonna have to go right back to finding the deer hunting videos or whatever it is, you know, that's gonna pay my way until the next big thing comes on. And so, you know, I still don't have a family of my own, and that's mainly because I tend to, even now that I get really well compensated for my films, I tend to just churn my fees back into the films, you know, and because I'm still not. You had a question that was on the sheet. It was like, what is, you know, when did you know that you made it? And like, you know, I mean, of course I have made it, but like, that's, for me, it's still like in the future. There's still, you know, there's so many mountains left to climb, and so I knew, because of how important a family is to me, that like, if I got myself into a position where I had to choose between filmmaking and a family, it would be choosing the family, but I know that I would not be present because of having to, this part of me. So it's this sort of continual journey. I mean, I feel like I am, but to the answer of made it, I think the big reason why I moved back to Dallas was that, you know, this was a handful of years ago, and I just had the feeling that the golden era of my career was about to begin, and that the golden era would be, you know, 40, 50 years, and then there were two people who wouldn't be able to see most of that golden era, and it was my folks, and I'm really happy my dad is here, and so, you know, being able to share this with my parents, I mean, that's been making it in a very wonderful way, because you know, when we made Into the Spotlight, it was the hardest film I've ever had to make, because you are dealing with a population who relies on the same kind of answers every time. That's how they're comfortable. And I'm making generalizations, and you know, and that's exactly what I don't do with the story itself. And you're dealing with a context where they're trying to keep conflict to a minimum. You need conflict for drama. So I had hundreds of hours of footage. I had 400 hours of footage, and it was just finding the story within there. And the exciting thing, well, the the not fun thing was taking iterative cuts and showing it to the people paying for the film. And I would sit there and I would talk about how, just ignore the fact that it's all shaky. Ignore the fact that you can see other cameramen in there. Ignore the fact that, like, each scene is going on way too long. Ignore the fact that the audio is bad. All you're doing is trying to see that, like, that there are story elements here. And I'm like, I promise you, I can see them. And so I would show these objectively bad cuts of the film as we're moving on to the people paying for it, and they would sort of look around the room like, does this guy know what he's doing? Did we hire the right guy? But the fun thing was taking those same cuts to my folks and saying, look at how bad this is. And they thought it was bad. They're like, that's enough. We don't need to see anymore. But I was like, but I promise you, I see something beautiful in this. So just keep waiting. You know, just keep. We're gonna get there. That's been great. And just, you know, I came back to Dallas, which did not look like success to me. But that was following the universe. The universe said, go to Dallas, and I came here, and I've been busier than I've ever been. And I want to circle back, make sure I got your answer. Or was you? No, it was you. What was the question again?
Your finance situation, your early years after college.
Right. So it's. I mean, finally with this consistent work and making all of these films at the same time, I've been finally at a more stable place, and that's I'm 44, 45, something like that. It's a consistent. It has been a consistent challenge, and I guess the negative part for me, or that it's also a positive, is that like I can't work on things that I'm not moved to work on, called to work on, these kinds of things, and so because I had fewer opportunities in years past, you know. I would have these cool projects that I would spend months on that would go nowhere, and like and you know, while I'm doing it, I'm having to do these little jobs to pay the rent, to keep the car payments going, and it's always this churn, right? And yeah, I would say it's only in the last 5 years that like I've started to feel comfortable and know that I don't have to worry about tomorrow. But the finances, like that's why your parents tell you not to do this, and that's why I tell people to not double major. You know, you don't have to go to college if you want to make films. You can just go out and make it. I recommend it because you meet a lot of great people in film school who are making class projects, and so you get to learn that way. But like if you go and you double major, every single person I've known that has double majored in film and something else, they are doing that something else because it is a soul suck. It is so hard. You just have to decide that like I want this life and I'm going to continue to go after it and continue to go after it. And hopefully hopefully you do go in this path and it's easier for you. Maybe if you always do the harder thing, you know, you'll get there quicker than I did. It took me a long time to figure out that like taking an easy path was not going to help in the long run. But yeah, I mean, like the thing is like if you allow yourself the luxury of doing something safe, then you're not going to take the risks. And so if being consistently financially stable is the most important thing, then maybe, you know, find something that's a little bit more steady. But if you can find it in yourself that I have this passion, that I have to do this, then that's how you're going to get there. You're going to keep going, and it might be like you might discover that, oh, I don't really want to be a director. What I want to do is be a DP. So my cinematographer, my director of photography, he's 27 years old. I started hiring him when he was 22. I hired him to shoot an NFL series at age 22 because he's so incredibly talented at what he does. He's going to win cinematography Oscars, and the thing is when he was in college, he discovered that even though he grew up thinking about being a director, that the power of the visual image was really what was calling out to him. And so he stays consistently busy and is consistently artistically challenged and enjoys his work. So you could, you know, it's maybe you'll discover along the way that it's not the loneliest path, and then you're in a place where you're, you know, have a house and have bought a Tesla when you're 25. You know, you can get there. That's certainly my cinematographer got there. So you know, it's just it's going to be your own path.
I've got one. Thaddeus, I think you're just an amazing storyteller, and to focus on your documentary part of your career. Obviously, with some of the controversial things that stories can lead you to, maybe it's political strife in Cuba, maybe it's city of Dallas, and maybe some Texas politicians, and maybe kick some things under the rug. people maybe don't want to talk. Maybe doors are closed to get that perfect story. Tell us your process. Is it your credentials? Is it your awards? Is it past experience of success that gets them to be on your films? And to tell us, without them, maybe that story doesn't come out the way it's supposed to because you can't get it all. What's your process?
Well, I mean, there's a lot more of that now, but like, honestly, that most friendly thing from high school, you know, I don't have to pretend or anything like that, but like, it's something about. So now, yes, it's much easier for me to get through those doors and get through those sort of those walls. But really, it's always passion. It's always passion and patience and interest in the other person. If we are as humans and as consumers of entertainment and you know, education, etc., we connect to passion. It doesn't matter what that person's passion is. If you can feel the passion from someone, you want to go on that journey, or a little of it, with them. And so, like, the SMU story is really a perfect example, because I hadn't done anything to allow me to convince these people who had not talked for 20 years to just start talking. You know, and I looked a lot younger then, and you know, you know, it's funny to me because I used to be on the SMU football fan board all the time, Pony Fans it was called. And I remember we were in Colorado for my older nephew's birth. He's right there. And I was in the lobby of the hotel, and or the office in the hotel, and I had Pony Fans up, and my mother is there, and she's like, "You're never going to make any money being on that site all the time." Well, the the thing was that I spent so much time on there that I had you know, credibility as a fan amongst a number of people, and so that was a start. But it was like, it really is, the secret is being vulnerable to the individuals, showing them that you have a drive to go somewhere, and really that like the passion is to get their authentic voice. You know, I can be very outspoken in my political views, and I have things that I, you know, believe with such passion in terms of these views, etc. But like, or I can be that passionate about being a fan. But like, I want you. If I'm interviewing you for Pony Access, I want you to tell the SMU fans that they're cheaters. You know, that they're you know, that like, of course they should have gotten that. Like, I mean, why wouldn't they get punished that way? Because it's, you know, the truth is so beautiful, and so if you're sort of, and I mean, truth is always subjective, but allowing people to tell their truths, and you being there consistently, articulating that your presence to them, and being present, and being, you know, non-judgmental. Like, it's amazing how many times people haven't seen my earlier films, and they just trust me. And that was another thing that like used to drive me crazy. I was like, you know, I remember telling my brother once when I was in college, I was like, I don't know why people like me. Like, I'm, you know, because I was having trouble liking myself. A big challenge over all these years. These last 11 years have been amazing. So, but like, I just remember, you know, within a few hours of meeting Fidel Castro's daughter. I mean, it wasn't even a few hours. It was like 45 minutes. She was like, of all the directors they've ever brought to me, you're the first one I've trusted. So, And so I do know how that happens, and I also don't know how that happens. But it really is just about being present and being committed to being a vessel, a conduit, and not, be the lighthouse, not the light. And if they trust you that you're going to do that, and for many it's a huge leap of faith, then it's you have a wonderful challenge and a duty to each of these people to share their truths. And I said earlier that documentaries are representative of reality, and that's one of the biggest challenges, because in order to show certain people's truths, you have to combine things that aren't necessarily completely true on screen as to the way they were in real life. There's this big moment into the spotlight, which in the film seems like it lasts 2 months. Really, the whole thing happened in a day. But the drama was so intense and so far-reaching that, if we just had the drama play out in that one moment when it did, it wouldn't have felt as powerful, impactful, as world-changing as it did. And so it's also, for me, on this other end, knowing that when I'm being present to these people, that I'm also going to be taking liberties, but in a manner that I want to be true to their character, and I think it's just showing up and being present that allows that to happen.
Any questions?
I got a question. I'm creating a short film, and I've done directing in the past. I've directed a theatrical one-act last semester, and actually Lucian and Jackson Schutz were in my play. I got a good reception, and I'm wondering for my short film if you have any advice on directing.
So tell me, is directing a path you were thinking of going in the future? Is this the career that you want?
Originally, I was thinking about being an actor, but directing the one act really showed how awesome it could be, and I think it would be nice to head in that direction.
So yeah, I mean, I acted here at Jesuit. My 4 years here, I had always said were the best 4 years of my life. Fortunately, I've gotten to another place where I'm in the best part of my life, which is always right now. But the being able to be on stage and expressing yourself as someone else, or it's someone else's pain and problems that you're having to deal with. Yours don't seem as daunting anymore, and you're doing it with a group of individuals who have similar challenges to you, and you guys come together and you make something beautiful. And I think like I had said that in my childhood that one of my dreams was to act, and I've discovered though very quickly when I got to college and really started making films is that when I'm in the world, I'm not as able to be as true to the whole thing. And so directing is what I said earlier. It's recognizing the best idea, and it's not having the right idea. You don't have to have the right answer. What is so great to do, and a lot of directors don't do this because it is this, in order to get to this, go through this struggle, etc. You have to have this maniacal belief in self, even if you're faking it all the time. But because of that, you sort of get to this sort of insulated place where other people's ideas and opinions don't come in. But what I love to do is realize that everybody that I'm working with on a film, every single one of them, I mean, maybe 5% are different from this, but they got into film because they wanted to direct, and they wanted to create the worlds that we were going to. And so remembering that, and understanding that they have this passion, and they have their stories that they're dying to tell, and their talents that they're just burning to have shown, encourage that, and find a way in yourself that like you can understand that just because the people you're working with are having many more better ideas than you, that does not mean you're doing a bad job. That means you're doing a great job. That means you have people engaged in wanting, in something where they are accomplishing their dreams at the same time as this film is happening, that you are there to sort of shepherd along. I had friends who started a theater company in Chicago, and they talked about the director of any show they had, because it was a group of them, as a facilitator. And they defined a facilitator as he who does nothing. And the biggest challenge I had going from doing everything on my own, where it's like I've got to shoot, I've got to hold the boom, I've got to do all these things. Once you start getting a crew, you you end up not doing too much, and it's amazing how tiring that is. but if you can make your vocation as much about enjoying your own process artistically as bringing out the best in those around you, you're going to have people who want to keep working with you, who want to go on the adventures that you go on, who are feeling fulfilled, and thus you have happier sets, etc. And so, yeah, just be okay with other people's talents.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want to go like 8 more hours?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you guys, really an honor.